we'll focus on two topics, no? So two topics tayo today. We will discuss the classification of matter first, and then later on we will proceed with the periodic table, okay? So kaya naman siya within the session. However, just let me know if you have any other concerns or clarification, okay? So again, we will discuss two topics right now. The classification of matter first, followed by the periodic table. Okay, so this is quite a lengthy discussion, so please bear with me. Okay, and again, if you have questions, just don't hesitate to type into your chat boxes. Didigay pa ako. Anyway, so let's start. Classification of matter. Um, what do we need to know about matter now? Because last time we knew that chemistry is the study of matter, and matter is anything around us that has mass and occupies space. So that means when you are going to study matter, you should categorize them accordingly. You should classify them accordingly. Kasi we are talking about a broad subject, no? Masyado malawak yung matter, eh, no? So, kailangan, i-chop-chop mo siya into smaller chunks, no? In order for you to study it effectively, okay? Study it well, okay? So that's the reason why we have to classify matter, because we're talking about the vast amounts of matter, vast examples of matter in Earth alone. No? So we have to classify them based on their composition or based on how they look like. Okay? Yan, para naman hindi tayo mahirapan sa pag-aral sa kanila. Okay? So now, you are very much familiar with this table. Okay, so this table, probably you've seen this during your junior high school, senior high school, and until now in college. Okay, you will see again this table, no? So this chart here describes the classification of matter depending on its composition and its appearance. Okay. So let's take a look into it. Okay. So again, matter is anything that occupies space and has mass. So basically, it is safe to say that matter is everything around us. Okay. So again, if you want to study it very well, you have to classify it. Okay. So you can categorize each type of matter based on their composition or their appearance. Okay. So in terms of composition, there are two types of matter. Okay, we have the pure substance and the mixture. Okay, when we say pure substance, we have fixed composition here, or basically speaking, we are talking about the same composition. We're talking about matter of the same composition. Iisa yung laman niya. Okay? So example, water. Okay? Pure water. Okay? So if you have a pure water, all the compounds there, all the molecules exist as H2O. Okay? Pure water eh. Yun lang, nothing else na. So yan, that is a pure substance when the molecules or the atoms present in your sample is the same all throughout. Okay? So yan, fixed composition, and cannot be further purified. Okay? Kasi yun na yun eh. Okay? Siya na yung simple eh. Okay? Siya na yung simplest form ng ating substance eh. Okay? So, yun yung pure substance. It has the same composition all throughout. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, kung H2O yan, H2O yan lahat. Okay? Kung yan ay ethanol, ethanol yan lahat. Okay? Kung yan ay sodium chloride yan lahat. Okay? So, that is an example of pure substance. However, if you start mixing them, you will come up with what's called a mixture. Okay? When you say mixture, this is a combination of two or more pure substances. Okay? So, for example, if you're going to make a dextrose, no? Okay, so you are familiar with dextrose. It is the combination of water and glucose. Okay? So, yung tubig and yung glucose, pag pinagsama, that's a dextrose. No? Okay? So, yan. Pwede yung lagyan mo pa yun ng mga let's say, kunwari, sodium chloride. Okay? Okay? Para may ions yung tao na bibigyan mo ng dextrose. Okay? So, yan. So, when you combine pure substances, you form a mixture. Okay? So, yun lang. Yun na yan. So, let's go back to pure substances because when we talk about same composition, we might be referring to two different pure substances. Okay? Dalawa kasing uri ng bagay that have the same composition. We may be talking about elements or compounds. Okay? Same composition. It could be elemental form or in the compound form. Okay, so let's distinguish the two now. When we say elements, we are talking about atoms that are the same. Okay, we are talking about atoms that are not the same. No? I mean that are same. Sorry. We are talking about atoms of the same element. Okay, so for example, you have a gold bar, no? Kung may gold bar ka, edi sana all, di ba? So when you have a gold bar, all the atoms present in that gold bar is the atom of the element gold, okay? So it has certain amount of proton, certain amount of neutron, certain amount of electron, and that is constant all throughout your sample, okay? So that is the element. Okay? You have the same compound. I mean, you have the same atom all throughout. Okay? Iisa yung atom mo sa isang element. Okay? However, when you combine different atoms, you start to form compounds. Okay? Pag pinagsama-sama mo yung dalawang atom or higit pa, you form compounds. Okay? So, compounds, example niyan would be water. Okay? So, saan gawa yung water? It's formed from hydrogen gas and oxygen gas. Okay? You will form water. So, hydrogen gas, element yan because as you can see, iisa yung element niya. Okay? Iisa yung atom niya. For oxygen gas, this is also an element na kasi iisa yung kanyang uh, symbol. Okay? Iisa yung kanyang atoms. Na? So, pag pinagsama mo yung dalawang different atom, you form a compound. Okay? So, yan. And elements or compounds, they can be classified as pure substance. Okay? So, yan. Now, I hope we're clear with that, ha? Pag sinabing elements, same atom. Pag sinabing compound, combination of atoms. Okay? Or molecules. Okay? So, yan. So, yan yung ating types of pure substances. Very easy, di ba? So, now, let's proceed with the mixture. When we talk about mixture, dalawa yung pwedeng maging appearance niya. Okay? It may look like it has only one face. Pwedeng two or three distinct faces ang makita mo. Okay? So, kapag ganun, if you're classifying mixture based on its appearance, we can categorize it as homogeneous or heterogeneous mixture. Okay? Let's take a look into the two. Okay? The two types of mixture. Pag sinabing homo, one. Pag genus, face. Okay? So that means if we are saying that this is a homogeneous substance, okay, ibig sabihin nun, we are talking about one phase lang yung observable. Okay? So when I say one phase, it could be all solid, all liquid, all gas. Okay? I'll give you some example of homogeneous mixtures na. Ano kaya? For example, yung tap water natin. Our tap water, yung galing sa gripo, okay, yung nawasa. Okay. Our tap water is a homogeneous mixture. No? It is composed of water molecules. However, at the same time, it also consists of other compounds or other elements. No? For example, you have the chloride ions in there. You have some sodium. You have some carbonate in there. Okay? So, yun yung composition ng tap water. Siguro you may ask, no, bakit may ganun, sir? Okay. Ang reason for that is that these compounds are used to kill bacteria. Okay. For example, yung chlorine, pampatay yan ng bacteria in water. Okay. Then yung sodium, andyan talaga yan madalas sa water, no? And that is good naman because it maintains isotonic solutions, no, sa ating body. Okay. So, tama lang yung amount ng ions. Okay? So, it is still necessary to have these other ions, okay, in water. So, yan. So, pag tinignan mo yung tap water, it looks like homogeneous all throughout. No? Ibig sabihin, isa lang yung phase niya. Liquid siya lahat. Wala kang nakikitang lumulutang na kung ano-ano na. Okay? So, that is an example of a liquid homogeneous mixture. It appears liquid all throughout. However, when you take a look into its composition, iba-iba. Okay? We have the water and the ions. Okay? Some of the ions again are used to kill the bacteria. Okay? For example, the chloride ion. Okay? So, yan yung sa liquid, no? Maraming pwedeng example for that. Okay? Example, if you're drinking coffee right now, your coffee is made of water and some organic molecules from your coffee or tea, no? For example, yung caffeine, okay? When you mix caffeine into your water, wala namang ibang appearance siya, no? Magbabago kulay, yes, pero it's still homogeneous all throughout, okay? You can just see only one phase of matter, no? Sa sample mo. Okay, so that's an example of a liquid, a homogeneous mixture. Okay, how about solids? Okay, kasi ito medyo hindi kayo familiar siguro, no? Solid na homogeneous mixture, no? So, I'll give you an example, okay? Bronze medal. Oops. Okay, the bronze medal is an example of a solid homogeneous mixture. Bakit? Kasi yung bronze metal it is made of copper and zinc. Okay? Gawa siya sa copper and zinc. Pero, if you take a look into it, it appears that you cannot distinguish the two elements in the mixture, di ba? Hindi mo madidistinguish, ay, ito copper, ay, ito zinc. No? Ang nakikita mo is bronze metal in its entirety. Okay? So yeah, that's an example of a homogeneous mixture that is in the solid phase now. Another example will be the amalgam. Okay. Okay. Are you familiar with the amalgam? Ito yung nilalagay sa ngipin, no? Before, no, the amalgam that dentists use, no, is made of mercury and gold, no? Kaya mapapansin nyo, yung mga old people, no, okay, or kung may nabasa kayong documentary, some of the old people, no, actually have gold in their teeth, no. Bakit, no? Kasi yung dentist before, ang ginagamit nilang amalgam is a mixture of gold and mercury, gold and mercury, okay? When you mix mercury with other metal kasi, it starts to harden na, okay? So, nagiging amalgam siya. So, ginagawa ni dentist natin, ilalagay yun sa cavity after cleaning it, no? So that hindi na siya masisira, okay? No other bacteria will grow inside the teeth, okay? Okay, so ganun yung ginagawa. However, um, in this modern times, no, we don't use this anymore because we know the risk of mercury, okay? We know that mercury can cause death, okay? And it can cause severe impairment in the nervous system, okay? It can cause mental diseases, no? Kaya ayan, we are not we don't use this anymore, no? The mercury amalgams, no? Rather, we use some um, other organic compounds that sets under UV light, no? Kaya mapapansin mo pag ikaw nagpapasta, ay ididikit dun si doktora. Tapos, liliwanagan na ng UV light, no? What's happening there is polymerization reaction of organic molecules, no? So, once it polymerizes, it hardens. Okay? So, yan. Na-experience ko yan when I was, ilang taon ako nun? When I was in grade 4, yon, ang daming binunot sa akin ng ngipin and pasta. Okay? So, yan. So, alam niyo na, kapag kayo nagpapasta in the next few months or years, pag nakita nyo may lumiliwanag na UV sa bibig nyo, ibig sabihin nun, the doctor is initiating chemical reactions, no? Polymerization reaction for the amalgam to set. No? Okay. So, yan. Originally, it's made of mercury and mercury and gold. However, for now, we don't use that anymore because it's toxic. Okay. So those are some few examples of solid homogeneous mixture. Okay. Ano pa? Ito. Yung ating rebars, no? When we say rebars, ito yung mga nasa hollow blocks, nasa gitna, yung mga bakal. Okay. Our rebars are made of iron and carbon and other elements that are in there now. Okay? So iron is a strong metal. However, it somehow needs carbon, a soft compound, no? Bakit kaya kailangan ng carbon? In order for your rebar to be flexible enough, okay? So you need your rebar to be flexible because, di ba, remember, if you're making the column in the house, no, you have to bend it in a rectangular fashion. Okay, if that is made of purely iron, it is impossible to bend. Matibay kasi masyado yung iron. That's why our engineers or our chemical engineers, no, make sure that the iron has some amount of carbon in it, no, kaya siya kulay black. Okay, so yan. It has some certain amount of carbon for it to be somehow flexible yet still sturdy due to uh, iron presence. Okay? So yan, kapag iron lang, mahirap i-bend. With carbon, it is easier to bend. Okay? But not too much carbon, ha? Kasi if you have too much carbon, it will be too fragile. Masyado siyang mabilis masira. Okay? So those are some example of solid homogeneous mixture. In the gas phase, you are breathing one of the examples of homogeneous in the gas phase. What is that? The air. Okay. So the air around you is composed of many different compounds or elements. No? Okay. So saan gawa yung air? Nitrogen, oxygen, you have carbon dioxide. Okay, so you can see this is element, compound. Okay, so yun yung mga composition ng air natin. We also have argon in the air. Okay, argon is a noble gas. I don't know where did it came from. Okay, but it is in the air. And sometimes we have radon actually in the air, and this is the reason why we have background radiation around us. Okay. So these are some examples of homogeneous mixtures. Now, they all appear the same all throughout. However, when you take a look into its composition in a molecular level, they look differently. Okay? Iba-iba yung elements, iba-iba yung compounds, pero yung itsura, iisa lang. Homogeneous mixture. If you start to see two distinct phases sa iyong sample, then that is called a heterogeneous. No? When I say hetero, more than one, okay? Multiple, okay? Genus, ibig sabihin, phase. No? So, iba-iba yung phase na nakikita mo. For example, ano kaya, yung tubig, yan, yung lupa, no? The mud, no? Yung mud, if you allow it to settle over time, the water and the soil layer will start to separate. Okay? So, yung soil, pupunta sa ilalim because it is denser. Yung water, it will float on top. Okay? So, yan. So, that's just one of the many examples of heterogeneous mixture. Okay? So, again, to summarize everything, matter is anything that occupies space and has mass, and we can classify it into two. We can have pure substance and mixture. When I say pure substance, we are talking about the same composition all throughout your sample. Okay? But if we are going to talk about the mixture, malabo mata ko kaya naka-squint ako. So if we're talking about the mixture, that is actually the combination of pure substances. Okay? Going back to pure substance, the pure substance can be further categorized into two, elements and compounds. Now, when we say elements, we are talking about the same atoms all throughout your sample. Okay. However, when you combine atoms, you form molecules. Okay, and that is called a compound. Okay. Compounds are a combination of different atoms. Okay. So, yan. And going back to mixture, if your sample looks the same all throughout, that means it's a homogeneous mixture. Otherwise, it's called a heterogeneous mixture. Okay? So, yun lang. So, that's basically it. No? However, may mga idadagdag pa ako later. Okay? So, yun. So, matter. When you say pure substance, we are also talking about the same... Teka lang, lobat. Yan. So, yan. For pure substances, we are talking about the same elements or same compounds that has specific set of chemical and physical property. Okay? So, yan. And then, elements, there are 118 of them. Later on, we'll take a look into that. Okay? And all of them are written in our periodic table, which we give Dmitry Mendeleev the recognition for creating it. Okay, and then 98 of the elements of the 108 elements are naturally occurring. So that means the rest are artificially made in the laboratory. Okay, so yes, they are artificially made. How? They actually combine two atoms of different elements. Okay, so when they combine them, they form heavier elements. Okay, so yun yung artificial elements natin. Okay, and then for compounds, again, take note that when you add two atoms, when you combine two atoms, you form a compound. Okay, so our compounds could be ionic or could be covalent compounds. Okay, we will discuss that in chapter 3. For mixture, this is the combination of pure substances, and it is important for us to know that the properties of the substances in the mixture retains. Okay? So, ano ibig sabihin niya doon? For example, in glucose, no? In dextrose solution. In dextrose solution, it's a combination of water and glucose. We know glucose is sweet, matamis yan. Water is bland, wala siyang lasa. Okay? Depende kung sino marami. That will predict the taste of our dextrose, di ba? For example, if sobrang daming tubig, walang lasa. Pero kapag sobrang daming glucose, masyadong matamis. Okay? So, ganun din kapag nagtimpla ka ng iced tea. Okay. So, for example, nagtimpla ka ng iced tea, o ito, hindi ito commercial. Ayan. When you prepare your iced tea, paghahaluin mo lang yung water and yung nesty, di ba? Okay? So, ano mangyayari? Water, matabang, wala siyang lasa. Nesty, very sweet, no? Pag pinag-mix mo yan, depending on which one is greater in amount, siya yung magpe-predict ng taste, no? Kapag sobrang daming tubig, sobrang tabang. Pag sobrang daming nesty, diabetes na yan. Kaya masyadong matamis, no? Okay, so yan yung idea for the mixture. The properties of the substances are retained even though you mix them. Okay, so yan. Here are some examples pa. Yung rebars kanina na sinabi ko. So sabi ko, gawa yan sa iron and carbon. Okay, yung iron, it is very strong. No? And carbon is very soft. No? Okay, mabilis yan masira. That's why yung ating lapis, napuputol agad minsan, okay? So, ayun, by combining the properties of the two, we can have a flexible but strong metal, okay? Pero if you add too much carbon, it will be so flexible enough that it cannot hold the weight of the building. No? So, yun, it should be in the right composition, okay? So, kailangan proper yung amount ng carbon and iron, okay? So, yan. Yan yung nire-research ng ating engineers. Okay? For example, itong bronze natin, copper and zinc, they have distinct properties as well. No? Copper melts at a different temperature than zinc. Okay? So, yan. Okay? So, ayun. So, unlike pure substances, the mixtures daw can be separated by physical means. Now, when we say physical means, that means we need to use physical objects or sometimes we make use of their physical properties in order to separate them. Okay, ito yung question natin. How would we separate the copper and zinc back out? Okay, let's make use of the physical properties of these elements now. Ano ba yung physical property? When we say physical property, we are referring to um, the properties that are attributed to the physical appearance or the physical changes of your compounds. Okay? Kunwari, hanapin ko yung melting point ng copper. Copper melting point. Melting point. Okay, so the melting point of copper is 1085. 1085 degrees. And then for zinc, that is zinc for 19.5. Okay, so these are the melting points of copper and zinc. Okay, so 1085 and 419.5. Okay, so it means that kunwari you have bronze metal. Okay, kunwari may bronze ka. Okay. Ayan, may bronze medal ka, no? Ayan, kunwari Olympics. Ayan. Kunwari, ito yung bronze medal mo. You want to separate them into copper and zinc. All you have to do is to melt it. Okay? At different temperature. Okay? So, you increase the temperature muna and then when you see that something is melting at a lower temperature, that is zinc. Okay? Yung zinc, mababaklas siya from the bronze medal. And then later on, at higher temperature, ang matitira ay yung copper, no? Only at 1000 degrees Celsius, dun siya magbe-melt, okay? So that's the idea. Because in mixtures, the physical properties of our substances retain, okay? Nare-retain siya. No? It still remains the same. No? That's why it is possible to separate them. Okay? So, yan yung idea that our mixtures can be separated by physical means. No? You can melt the metals, okay? And for this example, you can separate them using magnets, okay? Ano ba meron dito? This is a sand containing iron and salt, okay? So, yung sand, paano natin i-separate itong mga to? Yung sand, iron, and salt, yung iron, madali lang i-separate yan. We know that the physical property of iron is it is magnetic. Okay? Magnetic siya. So, you just use magnet. Okay? Wag nyo kamayin yan isa-isa. Because kapag kinamay mo yan isa-isa, ang dami mong time. Okay? Handaan mo, FEU student ka, wala kang time. Okay? So, yun. You need to use magnet. Okay? So that the iron will be separated from the mixture na. Okay? Pero paano yung salt and sand, okay? For salt and sand, you can just simply put them in water, okay? Because we know that salt dissolves in water. So whatever the solid form that will remain is the sand, okay? Okay? So ayan, makukuha mo yung sand by filtering the mixture in water, okay? Kasi yung salt matutunaw. Now, siguro yung question nyo, paano po namin makukuha yung salt? You can evaporate the water, okay, so that the salt will recrystallize, okay? So as you can see, there are many ways in separating our mixtures, no? So ito yung mga ways na dinescribe ko kanina, no? Okay? So let's discuss them again. You can separate your mixtures by utilizing their differing physical property with the help of magnets, okay? If your substance is magnetic and the others are not, that means you can use its magnetic property na. Okay, pwede magamitan ng magnet in order to separate it. Ito naman, if filtration, this will be very usable. This is very advisable, no, na gamitin when you have two distinct phases. No? For example, one is solid, one is in liquid form. Okay. then you should filter it now. Filter mo siya para mahiwala yung solid sa liquid. Example niyan, yung mga buhangin sa tubig, no? Yan. So, filtering gagawin mo dyan. For evaporation, if you have solids dissolved in a liquid, then you should do evaporation. Example of this is the salt water. Okay. So in provinces such as in Pangasinan, okay, hindi ako nakapunta ng Pangasinan, no. I'm just aware kasi nakita ko to sa Facebook. So sa Pangasinan, I think somewhere near the ocean, okay, near sa sea. Okay. Meron daw isa dong hilera ng beach, no, na nagdag sila ng hole so that yung water pwede pumasok doon sa hole na yon. Okay? And then, doon sa hole na yon, kino-collect nila yung salt water to concentrate it. Ibig sabihin para dumami yung salt na sa water. And then, binoboil nila yon. Okay? So, bakit nila binoboil? Because they know that there are solids dissolved in the water. Okay? That is sodium chloride in water. So, if you want to separate solids dissolved in liquids, then you should evaporate the water. Okay? So, ganun yung ginagawa ng mga traditional salt makers. No? Okay? They just evaporate the salt water and yan. That is sold in the market as rock salt. Okay? So, yan. Pag nakapunta kayo ng Navotas Fish Market, no, you can see mga gabundok na asin, no? Yung mga rock salt na yon, that's from the ocean. Okay? So, yan. Galing yan sa dagat. Yan. So, again, kapag filtering solid plus liquid, you can use that. Pag evaporation, we refer to solids dissolved, solid dissolved in liquid. Okay? You can use that. Okay? For distillation, ano naman to? Okay? Distillation, lang, asan yung aking pansulat? Ayan. For distillation, ito naman, this is a process of separating liquids dissolved in liquids. Okay? Or basically, liquid mixture. Dito magagamitin yung distillation. Okay? So, bigyan ko example, in making alcoholic beverages, okay, remember you are fermenting sugars with the help of yeast, no, para mag-produce ng alcohol. However, yung ating alcohol is mixed with other compounds, no, in the vat, no. So ibig sabihin doon sa lalagyanan ng fermenting mixture mo, halo-halo 'yun, no. Minsan may kahoy, no. Minsan may yeast pa, no. And then may water, and then may alcohol, no? So, how will you separate them? Okay? So, ganito ginagawa ng ating mga engineers sa planta. Okay? So, gagawin nila yung mixture ng fermented good, no? Ilalagay nila sa distilling tower. Okay? So, ano meron sa distilling tower, no? So, since yung ating alcohol, yung ethanol, and yung water, they are mixed evenly, they will use their physical property in order to separate them. Anong physical property yan? The boiling point, okay? The boiling point of ethanol is around 85 degrees and the boiling point of water is 100 degrees. No? So in order to separate the two liquids, ang gagawin nila is that they will boil off the mixture so that when the temperature reaches 85 degrees Celsius, ethanol will start to boil off. Okay? Mauuna yung ethanol than the water. So, mag-evaporate na yung ethanol and then magko-condense siya and that will be collected as alak. Okay? If mataas masyado yung concentration, that will be sold as rubbing alcohol. Okay? The isopropyl alcohol. Okay? Ayan. So, yan. Binibenta yan. Okay? So, ganun ginagawa nila. No? So, when they produce alcoholic beverages such as yung mga nasa San Miguel, Tanduay, no? So, yung kanilang mixture of the fermented material, they boil it off so that the ethanol will be removed from the mixture, no? And that ethanol is used as, alcoholic beverage, no? Kaya mapapansin nyo, dito sa Valenzuela, when you enter Valenzuela bandang sa BBB, okay, sa bandang Marulas, no? May San Miguel dun eh. You can see a huge tower, okay? That huge tower is the distilling tower, okay? The distillation tower. Okay? Doon nangyayari yung distillation process. Okay? Kaya mataas 'yun, okay? Because the ethanol needs to evaporate first, and as it reaches the top, it will condense and then it will fall down pabalik sa loob ng pabrika. Okay? So that's the reason why things like that can be seen in manufacturing plants. Okay? So yun, that's the distillation process. If you want to separate a liquid from a liquid, no, you make use of their boiling points. For chromatography, you can make use of their polarity. Teka lang, nasan yung aking pansulat? Okay. So for chromatography, you can make use of their polarity or their molar mass, no, in order to separate the molecules. Okay. So let's talk about polarity, no? Okay, so some molecules could be more polar than other. Okay, so pwedeng mas polar sila than the other. So that means if you run it off from the if you run it off with water, okay, some of them may attach to the water, some of them may not. Okay, so in your laboratory, in your laboratory experiment, you are actually asked to do this, now the chromatography. You have the paper chromatography and the column chromatography. So bale, the concept behind that is just a make use of the physical property of the substances in your mixture, no? For example, tinta yan ng ballpen, okay? Yung tinta ng ballpen, halo-halo yan ng pigments, no? And the pigments also have different polarity, okay? So ibig sabihin, when the water hits the pigment, no, they will start to separate out depending on their polarity. The more polar the molecule is, the farther it will travel in the column. Okay. Okay. And then the more non-polar it is, the shorter the distance it travels. Okay. Yan. Kaya kung nabasa nyo na yung experiment nyo, ito na yung sagot doon. Ganito na yung sagot doon. So you have a column. Okay. Pag nilagyan mo yun ng alcohol or tubig, yung mga malalayo, that means they are polar. Yung mga malalapit lang yung distance, sila yung mga non-polar. Okay? So, yan. So, that's how chromatography works. In forensic forensic chemistry, or forensic chemistry, chromatography is used to determine whether isa kang positive sa drugs or not. Okay? So, yun yung ginagamit for drug testing. Okay, what we use to determine whether may presence of drugs ka, whether that's nicotine, methamphetamine, no, is we use the GCMS, the gas chromatography mass spectrometry. Okay, so ano ginagawa niya, no? So we actually get blood samples from a person. Okay, so kukunin namin yung blood niya, and then i-analyze using GCMS yung composition ng kanyang blood. Okay, remember, our blood is a mixture, no? Mixture yan of many different substances. Okay, okay, that's a homogeneous mixture actually, no? So halo-halo yan. Meron yung hemoglobin, meron yung mga proteins, no? Meron yung mga plasma, and if meron drugs dyan, edi may drugs. Okay, so ang ginagawa ng GCMS is that it actually takes note of the molar mass of the compounds present there. Okay? Because yung hemoglobin, it has a certain molar mass. Yung ating plasma, it has a certain molar mass. No? However, once na makita sa spectrum, no? Once na makita sa spectra na mayroong molar mass for nicotine, that means positive ka na agad. Okay? Positive na. Kasi yung ating mga proteins in our blood, no, they have high molar masses. However, yung drugs, they have lower molar masses, no. So, ibig sabihin, pag nakita nila may signal doon sa lower molar mass, that means positive nga talaga yung tao sa drugs, okay? That will be verified, and if confirmed, no, ayun, positive. Okay? So, ganun. Pero kung wala naman signal, that's negative. Okay? So that's how drug testing work now. We make use of chromatography in order to determine the molar masses of the compound that is present in the blood. Okay, and based on the molar masses, we can judge whether uh, positive ba siya or negative, or what type of drug was taken by the person. Okay, kasi magkakaiba yung molar mass ng methamphetamine sa ano sa ibang compounds, no. Okay, so yan. So you can do that, no. For flotation, teka lang. Ayun. For flotation process, ito yung ginagamit when you have tiny solids in liquid. When filtration fails, no, you have to do flotation process. So, saan ginagawa yung flotation? Are you familiar with microplastic research? No? I hope you are, no? Kasi in microplastic research, no, we are talking about plastics that are micrometers big, no? Ganun na siya kaliit. Micrometers small. Okay? So, if you do filtration, hindi effective, no? Because yung mesh natin might be big, okay? Siguro malalaki masyado yung butas ng mesh. That's why the microplastics can pass through the filter. So, what we actually do in microplastic research is that we use flotation process to separate them. Okay? So, ano ginagawa sa flotation? Very easy lang. Gagawin mo, you will add salt to the water so that the density of water will increase. Okay? So, yun. Nilalagyan mo talaga ng sobrang daming asin yung tubig so that the density of water will increase. Since the density of plastic and the water is different, they will float, no? Yung plastic, magpo-float sila. Okay? So, that is the flotation process. When filtration fails, you have to do the flotation. Okay? And that is done in microplastic researches. Okay? So kayo, biologists kayo, and one of the concerns we all face right now is the increasing number of microplastics dissolved in the ocean. No? We don't know yet what could be the adverse effect in the body when that was digested, pero we know that is a big concern, no? Kasi plastic don't naturally occur in nature. Okay? Kapabayaan na natin yan as a human, di ba? So, kasalanan na rin natin. So, that's why we should take a look into that more. No? Okay? You know naman, some of the sea turtles are dying due to plastic, due to the presence of plastics. No? Pero for microplastics, we don't know yet the extent of the harm it can cause. Pero yeah, since that it does not naturally occur in nature, it could probably pose danger, no, sa ating mga marine species. No? Okay? And eventually to us. No? Kasi yung ating isda na kinakain, microplastics sila, it can be transferred to us. No? I read a paper on that. And that is alarming. Okay? Kasi dito sa Laguna Lake, okay? Yeah, Laguna de Bay, no. So, sa Laguna de Bay, ang nabasa kong research is sinabi niya super daming microplastics daw doon sa Laguna de Bay. Imagine mo, some of the fishes, no, doon kinukuha sa Laguna de Bay. So, yeah, imagine nyo, no? Yung kinakain mong fish, may mga plastic pala sa loob, no? So, yung tinapon mo, bumabalik sa'yo. So, yeah, that's kind of alarming, and I hope that maybe in the future, you may want to take a look into that, okay? Because this is a good research, actually. Ayan, so, try nyo gamiting research yan. Okay? Pag nag-face-to-face na, syempre. Kasi kapag online, you cannot do this, okay? Because you need some chemicals na that are only found in chem labs. Okay? So, yan, as biologists in the future, gusto ko kayo mag-research on this, the effect of microplastics in health. Because for now, we don't know yet ano yung extent, okay? Pero it may cause harm in the future, okay? So, yan. So, in order to separate microplastics from the water, we use flotation. I just intensify the difference in the density so that plastics will float. Okay. For centrifugation, we actually take we actually make use of the mass of the substance. Okay, so you actually use the mass of your substance, okay, or the density of your substance, okay. So the more dense your substance is, the more chances it will settle at the bottom when you centrifuge it. So what is a centrifuge? No, centrifuge is a device or an instrument that makes use of the centrifugal force to separate out the mixtures. Okay? Ito yung ginagamit sa blood, no? So, our friends in medtech use this in order to separate the blood components. Okay? So, let me show you blood centrifuge. Wait lang ha. Nag-google ako ng picture. Ayan. So, yung centrifuge, ito yun. Centrifuge. Ito itsura niya. Ayan. So, ginagamit to sa biology. Pwede to gamitin to concentrate the bacteria from the liquids. Ayan. So, ayan. Umiikot-ikot yan. It makes use of the centrifugal force. And according to centrifugal force, the bigger the mass of an object is, the more it will be pushed at the bottom. Okay? So, that's why this is used to separate bacteria from the remaining liquid, to concentrate the bacteria. Okay? Ayan. And then, in medtech, they use it to separate the blood components. Okay? Because we know blood is a homogeneous mixture. But, when you centrifuge it, yan, separate siya into many layers. You have the red blood cell, the white blood cell, and the plasma. Okay? So, ito yung itsura. Yan. So, yan, homogeneous mixture. Ang dami naman dugo na ito. Ano kaya saan kaya galing na? Ayan. So, this is the blood. And yan. So, this is the red blood cell, the white blood cell, and the plasma. Feeling ko naman maliit lang to eh. Kasi ako, nagpapa-blood test ako. Okay, nagpapa-blood test ako regularly. Yung ginagamit nila is yung ganyan, pero hindi naman sobrang daming dugo. Yung ano lang, halfway lang. Medyo nakakapanghina after. Pero nakakatawa tignan yung blood mag-squirt sa loob. Yan lang. Pero kung takot ka sa blood, di ka talaga pwede mag-medtech, no? Kasi you will be dealing with blood in the future. Okay, so anyway, so yeah, that's centrifugation. It makes use of centrifugal force to push heavier objects farther below the tube. Okay, and then lastly, the sieve. Okay, so sieve is like a filter, no? Para siyang filter, but smaller yung kanyang holes. Okay. And sometimes we also have molecular sieves. Okay, so ito yung itsura ng sieve. Ayan. So it has smaller holes, no? Para mas ma-filter off yung smaller particles. No? And sometimes meron tayong tinatawag na molecular sieve. Molecular sieve. This one, ayan, yung mga pellets na yan. These are used to separate molecules from the sample. Okay? For example, if you want to concentrate your alcohol, gamitan mo ng molecular sieve. Okay? Because in distillation process of alcohol, hindi yan kaya maging 100%. Never. Okay? In physical chemistry, we call the alcohol-water mixture azeotrope. Okay? Okay, azeotrope, ibig sabihin, hindi mo na siya pwede ma-separate completely. Okay? Yung water and alcohol magkasama talaga sila. Okay? So, in order for you to increase the concentration of alcohol in the mixture, you have to use molecular sieve. No? So, gagawin ng molecular sieve, siya na mismo kukuha sa water molecules. Okay? So, ayan. So, this is used as a drying agent for alcohols in the laboratory. No? Drying agent yan. Okay? So, yun lang. So, those are the means of separating mixture. So, you can see, it makes use of the physical properties of matter. No? Okay? So, yun lang. Ano pa? Pag heterogeneous, pwedeng kamayin, no? Okay, pwedeng i-filter pa rin. Okay? So, and for homogeneous, components are evenly mixed, cannot see the parts. Ito na, let's talk about the phases of matter. No? Since we are talking about matter, we should know that matter appears in three distinct phases. We have the solid, we have the liquid, and we have the gas phase. Okay? So what's the difference between the three? Madali lang. Kapag solid yan, the distance of the particles isn't that big enough na. So dikit-dikit yung ating particles na. They are relatively close to one another. So as a result, mas matibay sila no? Because they can maximize the attractive forces. Okay? So attracted sila sa isa't isa. That's why matibay sila. However, when you increase the temperature, what happens is that the atoms start to move away from each other. They will gain enough energy to start separating from each other. So once they separate from each other, they can flow. Okay? They can flow from one another. Ibig sabihin, liquid na sila. Okay? For example, ito yung dalawang water molecule. Pwede na siya mag-pass through the water molecule. Okay? So they can flow. Okay? So ibig sabihin ng liquids are fluids. Fluids. Okay? Kasi they can flow past each other. And then for gases, if you further increase the temperature, that means the distance of the atoms become bigger, no? Because they gain enough energy to separate from each other. Okay? So yun, the more energy you provide them, the farther they will go. So ibig sabihin, magiging gas na sila. Okay? So yan, gas is still a fluid, no? It can flow. That's why, for example, nagpabango ka sa kwarto, it will slowly spread out, no? Sa room mo. Okay, maamoy mo yun sa corners ng room mo. Because gas particles are fluid, no? They can pass, yan, they can flow past each other, no? Okay. So yan, ibig sabihin, they can spread. Okay? So again, so yun yung states of matter. Again, the main difference between the three is that the distance of the particles, no? The more you separate the particles, the more chances for them to be in the liquid and the gas form. Okay? And as they transition, we can have different transition names na for them. Okay? As nabulol na ako. Ayan, as they transition from one phase to another, may tawag doon. Okay? For example, for solid to liquid, the transition is called the melting, okay, or the melt. However, if you do it backwards, that's called freezing. Okay? For liquid to gas, that's vaporization. Okay? For gas to liquid, that's condensation. For solid to gas, that's sublimation. Gas to solid, that's deposition. Okay? So again, what's the primary reason for these phases to happen? For these phases to exist? Ano lang, yung distance ng particles. No? The farther your particles are, the more chances they are liquids or gases. No? Pero the closer your particles are, the more chances they become solid. Okay? So yan, increasing the temperature will increase their distances. However, lowering the temperature causes their distances to shrink. Okay? Parang tao yan, no? Pag nilalamig tayo, ano ginagawa natin sa unan, no? We pull our pillows, no? Close to us, no? Katulad sa akin kaninang umaga, sobrang lamig, no? Yung unan, tinabunan ko sarili ko ng unan, di ba? Kaya kung may hotdog ka na unan na bolster daw tawag doon. Ayun yung hotdog na unan. Di ba dinidikit mo sa katawan mo kasi malamig eh. Okay? So ganun, ganun din yung atoms, no? If they start to become colder, okay? They will come close magdidikit sila, no? They will come close to each other, no? Kasi nilalamig sila. Nagdidikit sila. Okay? So, ganun din tayo sa ating mga unan, no? The colder the temperature is, the more na nakadikit yung unan sa atin. Pero kapag mainit, no? Ang ginagawa natin, ayan, as much as possible, nilalayo natin yung unan, nilalayo natin yung kumot. Ganun din yung ating atoms, no? Okay? Pag mainit na, they start to separate from one another. Okay? Therefore, they become liquid or gas. Okay? So, those changes in the physical state of matter is called physical change. Okay? So, when you say physical change, nagbabago yung phase of matter, nagbabago yung itsura. However, the composition is still the same. Okay? The water in the ice is the same as the water in water and the liquid water and the water in the clouds, okay, in the gas vapor. Okay? So same pa rin 'yon na H2O. The only difference is the appearance, okay? Okay, so yun lang naman yung nagbago, yung itsura lang. Okay, however, H2O is still the same H2O. Okay, whether that's ice, liquid water, or clouds. Okay, yan. So yun yung physical change. However, once you start to change the chemical composition of your matter, it is called the chemical change now. Okay, so paano mo malalaman when it is a chemical change now? When your compounds combine to form different compounds, okay? Or when your elements combine to form different compounds, okay? That's a process of chemical change, okay? Ayun. So, ano example niyan? For example, yung tubig, H2O. Saan gawa yan? Hydrogen gas and oxygen gas. Okay? This new compound will have new properties compared to its precursor, no? So, yung property na to is very different than these properties, no? So, bakit, no? Kasi we know hydrogen gas and oxygen gas, they burn, no? They can explode, okay? That's why we ban hydrogen gas sa balloons, no? Okay? So, sasabog yan kapag pinagsama mo, pag ito lang, no? Hydrogen gas, oxygen gas. However, when you combine them, it's water, no? Which is actually used to put off the fire, no? Mapapansin mo, parang magkaiba talaga sila ng property. Yes. Okay? Because again, in chemical changes, the properties of your products will be different with the properties of your reactant. No? It will be very different because the chemical bonds are different. Okay? So yeah, another example would be the sodium chloride. Okay? Okay. Sodium is a metal wherein kapag nilagay mo sa tubig, it will explode. No? Chlorine, when inhaled by a person, you will die instantly. Okay. However, when you mix these two elements, you form a compound called NaCl, sodium chloride. And we know that when you have sodium chloride, it doesn't explode in water. And at the same time, when you digest it, it doesn't cause harm, no? Okay? Kasi, sabi nga natin, when we are doing chemical changes, the properties of the final product will be very different with your reactants. Okay? So these two are harmful. Ito, toxic. Pero ito, okay lang, normal. Okay? So that's due to the chemical changes. Nagbago kasi yung composition ng iyong substance. Okay? So whenever your chemical composition changes, the physical appearance also changes. Okay? Ayan. Okay, so here are some examples of which, no? And then lastly, for this first part, no, we have these two laws that we have to keep in mind. The law of conservation of mass states that for every chemical reaction or chemical changes, no mass was created nor destroyed. So that means the mass is conserved. No? So kapag nagagawa tayo ng chemical reaction, if you have 5 grams reactants in total, yung products mo would be 5 grams in total then. Okay? So no, in ano yan, no matter is formed, no, nor created. Basically, what happened is that they just changed their bonding. Okay? Palit lang sila ng kapartner nila. Okay? So, yun yung law of conservation of mass, which which was stated by Antoine Lavoisier. Okay. French siya, Antoine. Ayan. So, yan. Siya yung nagsabi niyan. And then, another thing is the law of constant composition. This is stated by Joseph Proust, no? One of the leading chemists at the time. So, sabi ni Proust is that yung ating compounds, they have definite composition, meaning they have definite ratio of elements in them. Okay? For example, water has a ratio 2 to 1 ng hydrogen and oxygen. No? Pag pinalitan mo yung kanilang ratio, ibang compound na daw yan. Okay? For example, H2O2, 2 to 2, yung ratio ng hydrogen and oxygen. So, ibang compound daw yan, sabi ni Proust. Okay? When you alter the combination or the composition of your substance, that means you are now referring to a different substance. Okay? So that's all for the first part of our discussion. First part pa lang tayo. Okay? Di pa tayo tapos. So you can try to answer this problem set. Ayan. You can try this. Nasa PowerPoint to, so please download the PowerPoint. And then you can self-assess dito. Check nyo na lang kung tama yung sagot nyo. Okay? If you have further questions about this, uh, you can raise that to me. Okay? Pero otherwise, kung tama naman yung makuha mong answers dito, then that means you're good to go. Okay? So, answer that on your own. If you have a textbook, meron din yan. And then, ito yung mga sagot. Okay? Yeah. So, that's for the first part of our discussion. No? Hindi pa tayo tapos. Meron pa tayong isa. Sakit na ng lalamunan ko. Kasi last night, yesterday, I have 4 classes, no? Ay 7.5 hours yun. Bali, sunod-sunod yung pagsasalita ko kahapon, kaya ang sakit. Anyway, every Wednesday kayo lang naman students ko, kaya after this, I will have a long rest naman. Okay? Do you happen to have any question about our discussion or okay naman tayo? Okay, so again, we are on the review phase pa lang, ha? Nasa review phase pa lang tayo ng chem. Because we know that most of you probably were not from STEM background, okay? And probably di kayo STEM. So, yun, nagre-review tayo. And I hope that I gave you clearer picture sa mga dinidiscuss, ha? I hope na turo ko naman siya ng maayos. Let me know lang if there are things that I need to reinforce, no? Okay, so ganun lang. Okay. Kasi if hindi nyo i-raise yung concern sa akin, then I will assume na alam nyo na. Okay? So, yun. Okay? So, ganun lang, ha? Hindi naman ako yung uri ng teacher na pag may nagtanong, nagagalit agad. No, I'm not that person. Kasi ako matanong din ako eh. I actually encourage raising questions. Okay. Ayan. Kasi ibang teacher, kala mo, ano na ginawa mo, no? Nagtanong ka lang naman. But for me, that's not hindi naman big deal yan. Okay? So we are done with the first part of our discussion for this day. And the second part is on the periodic table. Okay? So we know that elements that we described earlier are all listed in the periodic table. And currently, all the slots, no, all the boxes in the periodic table have been completely filled na, no. We have the hydrogen as the first element up to oganesson, which is the 118th element. So this is the oganesson, and that was just discovered recently. I think that's 2013 if I'm not mistaken. Okay, very recent lang. Naalala ko nga noong bata ako, no, when I was grade 1, no, fascinated ako sa science, no. Kaya siguro nag-science ako. Okay. Kasi pag grade 1 ka, yung mga textbook mo, yes, may picture sila, pero I don't like them, no. Okay, I don't like those books, no. Yung pinabasa ko na book is yun sa kapatid ko, no, which was grade 4 that time. So, nagsa-science na siya. Okay. So, binabasa ko yung science book noong grade 1 ako. Tapos, natutuwa ako, no. Then, I remember that time, no, may periodic table sa front page. Kaso, yung periodic table na yon, ang daming kulang, no. Basically, all these things below, I think hanggang dito. Itong mga bagay na to, wala yung laman that time. Okay? As in, box lang talaga siya. Pero, ayun na nga, no? Over a few years, no? Over a few years, no? 2001 yon. Tapos ngayon, 2021, no? 2 dekada nakalipas, puno na yung periodic table natin. Okay? So, yan. That's a product of research of our physicists, no, sa ibang bansa, no. And yung mga recent edition, mga Japanese na discover niyan, no. Anyway, so yun na nga, no. Our periodic table is evolving. Dati kulang-kulang yan. Ngayon, kompleta na. But now, tignan natin yung pinaka-history, no, ng periodic table. Saan ba 'to nanggaling? Okay? Ganito. Okay. Nung unang panahon, onti pa yung elements, no? So, ibig sabihin, yung periodic table, it appears very different, no, noon kaysa sa ngayon. Okay? So, ito yung short history niya. So, we have these four people that contributed to the development of the modern periodic table. So, we have the Dube-Reiner's triad, the Newland's octave, and Mendeleev's periodic table, and some of the Henry Moseley's idea. Okay? So, tignan natin yung mga contribution nila. Okay, so for Dube-Reiner, ang ginawa niya is he arranged the elements in triads. Tatatlo. Okay? And bakit niya in-arrange yung tigtatatlo? Kasi onti pa lang elements. So, ganun ginawa niya. The writer arranged the elements by threes. And these three elements will have the same property. So, let's take a look at this part. Okay, so lithium, sodium, potassium. Itong lithium, sodium, potassium, they have the same physical and chemical property. Okay? Example, lithium, pag nilagay mo yan sa tubig, sasabi niya. The same thing for sodium and potassium. Okay? So, ayan, ginawa ni Dube Reiner, i-arrange yung mga elements by trees. No? But sila yung similar chemical properties, sila yung magkasama. He called it the triads. Okay? Okay. Something na na-discover niya, when he arranged the elements by threes, may interesting siya napansin. Okay? Kunin natin yung lithium, sodium, potassium. We know the molar mass of lithium is 7, potassium is 40, di ba? Or 39. Okay, so yan, 40 na lang. So if we take the average of the two, we can get the molar mass of sodium. Yun yung sabi niya. So tignan natin, 47 divided by 2, 23.5, di ba? 23.5. So, alam natin that the molar mass of sodium is 23. Okay? So, at least, medyo close, di ba? Yun yung something na na-discover ni Dube Reiner. No? When you arrange the triads no, in increasing molar mass, the second element will have the average of the molar masses of the first and the third element. No? So, yun yung napansin niya. Okay? So, that is true for lithium, sodium, potassium, calcium, strontium, barium, and many more. Okay? So, yun yung kanyang fascinating discovery. Okay? So, by that time, they used Dube-Reiner's triad as the periodic table. Okay? However, since dumadaming elements na na-discover, okay, there is no a need to make bigger tables kasi dumadami na yung elements na na-discover. Okay? So, dito na pumasok si John Newland. So, John Newland is a British chemist. So, ang meron kasi with the British people is ganito, no? According to my teacher nung high school, sabi niya sa akin, yung mga Briton daw, they are very fond of music, no? Mahilig sa music, no? And that is proven by BBC News. Share ko lang to. Ako mahilig ako sa classical music eh. Kaya I am very familiar with the BBC Proms. Pakita ko sa inyo. BBC Proms. This is an annual event in the United Kingdom wherein they celebrate the music of the great people, no? Such as Elgar, Beethoven, no? Ayun. So yan, that's almost half a year long ng music celebration sa UK. Ibig sabihin, yan yung patunay na, yes, they are very fond of music, di ba? Okay. And isa pang patunay doon is yung Mary Poppins, no? Sa UK yun nag-originate. No? Okay. So, mahilig sila sa music, no? So, si John Newland, as a British person, mahilig din siya sa music, no? Ginawa niya, he used this music idea sa periodic table. So, anong ginawa niya? In music, no, especially in this musical stuff here, no, the notes are repetitive, no, every 8 note, no. Diba? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, diba? Syempre, di na ako kakanta, basag na boses ko. So, pag nag do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do ka, yung do sa first and sa 8th note, they are the same, diba? Okay? So, ibig sabihin, Yung elements, probably ganun din. Okay? Similar with the idea of Dubé-Reiner, no? There are repeating properties of matter. Okay? Kay Dubé-Reiner, every three elements may repeating properties. However, for Newland, every eight elements may repeating property. Bakit naging eight? Because ang dami ng elements. Okay? Ayan. So, John Newland discovered that you can arrange the elements in the periodic table every eight. Okay? Every after eight elements. Okay? So, ginawa niya, yung arrangement, increasing atomic masses, and then every eight elements, ulit-ulit yung property niya. Okay? So, let's take a look at this one. Ayan, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay. So, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, tapos babalik ka sa do. So, tignan mo, no? When he arranged the elements in increasing mass, papansin niya that the properties repeat, no? Ayan, no? The lithium, sodium, potassium, magkakasama uli sila. Okay? They are all combined again in a column. Okay? So that confirms that yes, meron ngang repeating properties yung ating elements. No? Okay? So, yan yung periodic table ni Newland. So, siguro tataka kayo, no? Ano ba meaning ng periodic sa periodic table? When we say periodic, we are actually speaking of repetitive properties. Okay? Pag sinabi natin periodic, repetitive properties. Okay? Kaya yung periodic table because that is a table of repetitive properties. Ayan, mapansin nyo naman eh. Whether ayan kay Dubé-Reiner, kay Newlands, no? So may repeating properties. Okay? So yan lang. Then, nag-kick in na yung Industrial Revolution. Ayan. So, during the Industrial Revolution, ang daming nangyari sa Earth. We were able to produce engines, no? Steam engine. And together with it, no? Ang funding sa science nag-increase, no? Okay? So, why is there an increase in funding of science during the Industrial Revolution? Kasi alam nila that scientists has the answers sa questions nila sa buhay. Okay? So, ganun ka-important yung science during that time. Pero ngayon, sa time natin ngayon na kung ikaw scientist, ikaw pa yung iaano nila, no? Ibabash pa nila, no? We are on a very, very sad as a century siguro. Kasi, no, yan, Industrial Revolution, people look at scientists as gods, no? Because they almost have the answers to everything, no? You have the Albert Einstein, you have Niels Bohr at that time, no? Pero ngayon, ano ginagawa sa mga scientists natin? We are underpaid, no? Hindi tayo pinapakinggan. So, yan, medyo sad lang that ganito na yung nangyari sa Earth, no? Pero before, yung scientists, malaki yung tingin sa kanila ng society, no? So, that's why during the Industrial Revolution, they funded researches, no? So, ano yung naging resulta nun? Dumami lalo yung na-discover na elements, no? As in, super dami na. Okay? So, hindi na kaya ng octaves ni Newland yung yung elements, no? Hindi na kaya kasi super dami na. Naging 80 na yan, naging 90 na yan, no? So, hindi na kaya sa octaves. So, dito na papasok si Mendeleev, no? So, ang ginawa ni Mendeleev is that he studied again, no, the properties of each elements, and he arranged it by increasing atomic masses. Okay? So, yun. Increasing atomic masses yung ginawa niya, just like Newlands. And then, group niya into similar properties. No? So, nangyari, yung 8, naging ganito na, no? Naging 18 na. 18 groups na yung periodic table natin. Okay? So, ito yung group na to. Iisa yung property nila. This group will have similar property, so on and so forth. Okay? Another interesting thing na na-discover ni Mendeleev is that, for example, may missing element dito. Hindi nila alam. Okay? If there's a missing element, you can predict its property. Okay? Pwede daw niya ma-predict yung property just looking at this table. Kasi sabi ni Mendeleev, yung average ng dalawang properties na yan will be the property of this element. Okay? Yun yung na-discover niya. One example of which is the gallium. Okay? Gallium is called the Eka aluminum. Okay? hindi pa siya na-discover before, no? So, tawag sa kanya Eka-aluminum. Ano meaning ng Eka? Hindi ko alam. So, yun yung tawag sa kanya, Eka-aluminum. So, hindi pa discovered yung gallium at that time. So, Dimitri called it the Eka-aluminum. Siguro something below the aluminum. Okay? And then, nilista niya yung possible properties of this element. And then, by the time they discovered gallium, sabi niya, uy, tama yung discovery ni Mendeleev, no? Because it has the same density as what he has predicted, similar boiling point, melting point, no? So, ang galing, no? Because by just properly analyzing the periodic table, Dimitri was able to predict missing elements sa periodic table. Okay? And that is true until now, no? Yung mga properties ng mga blanks before, napalitan natin ng actual elements na. Okay, that were discovered later on. Okay, so yan, Dimitri arranged the elements in terms of atomic weights and their periodic variation. So as a result, instead of having 8 groups, ngayon we have 18 groups na, no? One group, second group, ito 10 yan, and then the remaining 6 groups, okay? So yan. So yan na yung ating periodic table na. So dumami na yung kanyang groups, no? So about Henry Moseley. So ano naman yung ambag ni Henry Moseley? Okay. So according to Henry Moseley, the periodic variation in the elements in the periodic table daw, it can be best described or it can be best attributed to the atomic number instead of the atomic mass. Okay? So sabi ni Henry Moseley, but atomic number, dapat but atomic weight yung basis ni Dimitri. Sabi niya, dapat atomic mass. Okay? So, sinunod niya ng mga scientists. No? But because this time, we know what protons are na. No? We know the nucleus of the atom na. Okay? So, yun yung ginawa ni Henry Moseley. No? Sabi niya, you arrange the elements in terms of atomic number. Basically, walang nagbago. Okay? Pero, this atomic number actually helped us to determine the properties, no, or the trends in the periodic table na. Because every trends in the periodic table has something to do with the atomic number talaga. Okay? So, yun lang yung nangyari. No? So, again, short history. Ito na yung modern periodic table. So, short history tayo. Okay? Ano meron? Teka lang. Nahirapan ako mag-scroll dito. Ayan. So again, to summarize everything, Dubé Reiner, onti pa yung elements. So what he did is that he arranged the elements in triads, no? Wherein the 3 elements will have similar properties. Okay? However, since dumadami na yung elements at the time, there was a need, no, to increase the triads to make it octaves. No? And that was introduced to us by Newland. Okay? Sabi niya, just like music, no, elements have repeating properties every after 8 elements. Okay? So yan, he arranged the elements in terms of increasing atomic mass then. And then, since dumadami na yung elements, no, as in super dami na talagang elements, dito na papasok si Dmitri Mendeleev, no, wherein he arranged the elements based on their atomic masses and their periodic properties. So, ang result, instead of having 8 groups, we now have 18 groups na, which is present in our periodic table. Okay? Si Henry Moseley naman, ang kanyang contribution is yung instead of having atomic masses as the basis for the trends, no, sabi niya, ang atomic number daw ang dahilan, no, for the repeating trends of the atoms in the periodic table. Okay? Later on, mapakikita natin yung atomic trends. No? Okay? So, yan yung history ng ating periodic table. This is what our modern periodic table looks like. Actually, ito, the lanthanides and actinium group, andito yan, nakaipit yan dyan eh. So that means the periodic table talaga looks like this. It looks like this. No? Ganyan talaga ang itsura ng periodic table. Kasi ito, this used to be included here. Okay? Magkakadugtong yan. However, the problem is, ano, masyadong mahaba. Masyadong mahaba. If you're going to print this, masyadong inefficient, no? So, ginawa nila, kinat nila to, and then nilagay na lang sa baba. So, you have this periodic table right now. Okay? Pero again, originally, dito talaga yung nakadugtong, ha? Okay. So, as you can see, the way they arrange the periodic table, no, mapapansin mo that their properties are really, no, can be really determined, no, can be really predicted, no, based on where they are in the periodic table, no. So, kung nasan siya sa periodic table, pwede mo malaman yung kanilang properties. For example, if you create a diagonal here, any elements here are considered metals, and any elements up there are considered non-metals, and anything in between are the metalloids. Okay? Okay, siguro magtataka kayo, sir, may hydrogen doon. Okay. Here's the interesting thing about hydrogen. Hydrogen used to be located here. Okay? Asan yung aking mouse? Ayun. Hydrogen used to be located here. Andito talaga dapat yung hydrogen. Okay? Nakita nyo ba yun kay Newlands? Pakita ko yung kay Newlands, ha. Kay Newlands, he grouped the hydrogen together with fluorine and chlorine. Okay? Ibig sabihin, dapat yung hydrogen nasa right side. Dapat talaga nasa right side. Ayun, no? Okay? Kasi non-metal yan. It should be somewhere here. Pero bakit kaya nilagay doon? Number one is to make the periodic table balance sa mata. Okay? And yeah, totoo yun. Kasi kapag nasa right daw yung hydrogen, parang hindi pantay. Okay? So to make everything visually pleasing, yung isa nilagay sa left. Okay? Another possible reason is that the valence electron of hydrogen is 1s1. Okay? And all these elements here have the similar valence electron. Okay, so this is 2s1, 3s1, 4s1, 5s1, 6s1, 7s1. Okay, so similar sila ng valence electrons. So nilagay na lang din si hydrogen. Although originally, dito talaga siya. Dito daw talaga siya. Pero to make it visually appealing, doon na lang siya sa other side. Okay? And that was really published na yung yung ganong reasoning, naka-publish yun. Okay. Nanonood ako ng ano sa yung chemist na matanda sa YouTube, si pangalan niya. Basta yung pinapanood ko siya parati. And one of his question is, bakit ganito yung periodic table? Ayan, sabi niya nga, no, it was found out that the reason why the hydrogen was located here is just to make it visually appealing, para pantay sa mata. Okay? So, yun lang. So, again, this excluding hydrogen in this group, no, these elements here will have the same property. Okay? These elements here will have the same property, and so on and so forth. Okay? Ano pa? Itong metalloids natin, itong nasa diagonal na to, okay, ano meron sa kanila? So metalloids have a mixture or the combination of the properties of metals and non-metals, no? And actually that is somehow advantageous for them. Okay, for example, right now we use silicon as our semiconductors, no? If we use metal as semiconductor, okay lang naman. Kaso the problem is that metals rust. Okay, nangangalawang yung metals. Okay, so ang ginawa ng mga scientists natin, they made use of semiconductors or metalloids, no, para hindi sila mangalawang, no. However, they can still conduct electricity. Okay, so yun, nagamit natin yung pagiging metalloid nila to our advantage, no. Yun, hindi sila nangangalawang, pero because they can somehow transmit electricity, they can somehow transmit electric current. Yun, they use it in transistors, no? In integrated circuits. Okay? So, yun yung mga nangyari. Okay? So, again, metals are shiny, they are conductive, and they are somehow magnetic. Okay? But not all. Okay? Non-metals, sila yung mga hindi nagko-conduct ng electricity. And their chemical reactivity usually, ang ginagawa nila is that they accept electrons. Metalloids, ano ginagawa nila? For metalloids, sila ay may mixture of metal and non-metallic property. Okay? They somehow conduct electricity. Pwede rin namang hindi. Okay? Depende sa situation. Okay. So, and some of the metalloids are listed here. Okay? So, ito, review tayo. John Newlands and Dmitry Mendeleev are both famous for their work assembling the periodic table. John Newlands completed his first work. John Newland completed his work first and he published his table in 1864. What did he name his table? Since Newland yan, ang sagot dapat natin ay octaves. Okay? So yan, octaves or law of octaves. Okay? And then ito, next question. Mendeleev arranged the elements into his periodic table. He realized that some elements were yet to be discovered, so he left gaps for them. The patterns in his table allowed him, ito na yung sinabi ko, yung mga blank sa periodic table that time, the elements that are not yet discovered, with the help of his modern periodic table, he was able to identify or predict the properties of that element. Okay? So, yan. So, yun yung nagawa niya. Elements in Mendeleev's periodic table are considered by atomic weight. What are the elements in the modern periodic table ordered by? Okay, so alam natin that with the help of Henry Moseley, we now arrange the elements in terms of atomic number or the number of protons. Okay, wala naman masyadong nagbago when it comes to arrangement. However, mas madali siya isipin na atomic number ang basis. Okay? Kasi ang ating atomic masses, they are in decimal form, no? Pero yung atomic numbers, they are integers. No? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, ganun. So, ganun lang yung atomic numbers. No? Pero yung mass, iba-iba. Okay? So, mas logical if we arrange the elements indeed in atomic number because it is an integer. Whole number siya. Okay? Starting from earliest event at the top, sort the key events in the history of the periodic table into the correct number. Okay? Ito, chat nyo sa chat box natin. A, B, C, D. Arrange the following events in proper sequence. Sino na una? A, B, C, D. Okay? So, which of the four came first? Is it A? Is it B? Is it C or D? Sino sa apat ang nauna? Pwede kayo mag-chat sa chat box natin, ha? Okay, John Newlands. Okay, so yes, it is B. So si John Newlands muna, no? Pero we know before John Newland, we have Dube-Reiner, diba? Okay, so we have Dube-Reiner first, then we have John Newlands next. Sino after ng kay John Newland? We have Dmitry Mendeleev. Ayan. Susunod si Dmitry Mendeleev. Ayan. Sino susunod? Ayan. Henry Moseley. Ano yung ginawa lang ni Henry Moseley? Sinabi niya lang na instead of telling us that the elements are arranged in terms of their atomic masses, why not say na in terms of atomic number na lang, no? Bakit? Kasi atomic numbers are integers, no? And it will be easier to comprehend, no? Kaysa naman sa masses, no? Kasi kapag masses yan, hydrogen is 1, helium is 4, lithium is 7. Jumpy yung numbers. Sabi ni Henry Moseley, edi yung integer na lang, yung protons na lang, or the atomic numbers na lang. And then lastly, we have the modern periodic table, which is completely filled na. Ayun. Properties of elements are a function of their atomic number. Yes. Okay, yan yung sinabi ni Henry Moseley. Okay. Yan. So I think yan, that's good for the short history. This is the last part of our discussion. Periodic trends lang. Mabilis lang to, don't worry. So, di ba sabi natin kanina that the elements in the periodic table have periodic properties. No? Ibig sabihin, may nauulit na properties. Okay? So, nung unang panahon, ang basis nila for periodic property is the how they react. No? Pero, since we have now the technology to see atoms, no, to actually see atoms, nakita natin na, yeah, they are correct. No? That their properties are the same. At the same time, the appearance of atoms, no, the trends in the sizes of the atoms, no, also follow certain trends. No? So, yan. Ito na yung periodic trends natin. Okay? So, again, alam natin that the atoms in the periodic table, they are arranged in such way that they exhibit similar properties. No? So, apat yung periodic trend na i-discuss ko very quickly. No? The atomic radius, sorry, atomic radius, the electron affinity, the electronegativity, and the ionization energy. Okay? So, yan yung apat na trends sa periodic table na that we will discuss today. Okay? So, again, before, ang knowledge nila with the periodicity of the elements is that they behave similarly in terms of chemical reaction, which is still true until this time now. Pero, other than the chemical reactivity of atoms, the way they arrange the elements daw are ano din, are appropriate for predicting their sizes, no? Or their energies. Okay? So, ganun. So, tama rin daw yung pagka-arrange nila in terms of these parameters. No? So, now, let's take a look into the four periodic trends. No? First, we have the atomic radius. The trend for atomic radius is as you go to the right, it increases, and as you go down, it increases. Let's try to rationalize why that is the trend. Okay? Ito sabi nila, the reason why the atoms have increasing atomic radius as you go down the period, okay? Ang tawag dito, period ha. Yeah. So, tawag sa rows ay period. Okay? Sa rows ay family. Okay? So, as you go down the period, the size of the atom increases. Bakit kaya? Okay. So, the answer there is ganito. Okay? Um, remember that the atoms, no, pag nadadagdagan sila ng proton, nadadagdagan din sila ng electron. Okay? So that's why hydrogen has one proton, one electron. Helium has two protons, two electrons, so on and so forth. Okay? So kada dagdag ng proton, nadadagdagan ng electron. And we know that electron occupy the outer shell of the atom. No? So alam natin, we have the nucleus inside and we have the electrons outside. So that means the more electrons outside, the bigger the atom is. Okay? So yeah, so that's the trend as you go down the periodic table. Ang nangyayari is that there is an increase in the number of electron. They occupy higher energy levels or they occupy higher orbitals. That's why lumalaki yung size niya. That's why lumalaki yung size niya. As you go to the right, to the left side naman, the atomic size increases. Di ba kayo nagtataka? Kasi ako dati nalilito ako dito nung bata ako. Kasi di ba tama naman na as you go to the right, dumadami yung electron, di ba? 1, 2, electron, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 electrons. So dapat, di ba? If that's the logic, it should be going to the right, nag-i-increase. Pero bakit siya going to the left? Okay? So, nagtataka ako talaga nun. Kasi nung time na diniscuss to sa amin, third year high school ako, hindi ko talaga mag-gets bakit ganun. Bakit pagpapunta sa left, lumalaki? Eh, dapat, di ba, papunta sa right? So, ang answer doon is ganito. The reason why lumiliit siya, it gets smaller as you go to the right side is because of the proton. Okay? Yung protons natin. Kasi, consider if you are on the same family, if you are on the same period, no? The electrons will be confined in just one energy level. Okay? Okay? For example, hydrogen and helium, ang electron nila, nasa iisang energy level lang. So, ibig sabihin, iisa sila ng height, di ba? However, since you increase the number of protons as you go to the right, ang nangyayari, mas napupull nila yung electrons towards their center, no? Towards the nucleus. Okay? So, yun yung idea. Na yes, dumadami yung electron, however, the energy level will remain the same kasi. So, since they have the same energy level, as you increase the protons will actually pull them closer. Okay? So, yun yung idea sa atomic radius, no? Dumadami electrons, pero since nasa iisang orbit sila, dumadami na masyado yung positive, mas lalong lumiliit tuloy yung uh, orbit nila, no? Mas lalong nag-shrink, no? Because of the intense positive charge they experience, no? Ang tawag dun sa positive charge that the electron experience is the effective nuclear charge. Okay? So, yan. So, yun yung reason. Bakit pagpapunta sa right, it gets small? Kasi, same orbit lang, pero dumadami lalo. So, it shrinks. The orbit shrinks. Okay? So, that means as you go to the right, edi yung opposite trend yung ma-observe. Larger sila as you go to the right. Okay? Top to bottom, ano namang ganap dito, ano? Ayun, dumadami kasi yung orbit as you go down. Okay? The orbit increases. Okay? So that's why as you go down the periodic table, lumalaki talaga siya. Pero across the period, same orbit lang yan. Okay? So if you increase the number of proton, it really shrinks. Okay? So that's the analogy why the trend is this now. It gets larger as you go to the left, and it gets larger as you go down the periodic table. Okay? So, ganun ha. Sana hindi kayo malito, no? Kasi, nung bata ako, nalilito talaga ako doon. Alam ko, tinanong ko yun sa prof ko sa teacher ko. Tapos, sinabi niya lang sa akin yun sa libro. Okay. Pero hindi ako satisfied that time. Ayan, tapos nung nag-chem ako, sabi ko, ganun pala. Kasi nga, same energy level sila. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, pag dumadami yung proton, liliit lalo yung energy level nila. Kasi hinihila lalo sila. Okay? So, yun lang yung idea. Yun lang yung logic. Okay? So, yun yung periodic trend in terms of atomic radius. Okay? Now, let's go to the electron affinity. As you can see, the trend for electron affinity is the opposite for the atomic radius. Okay? Bakit kaya? Okay. Let's define electron affinity first. Now, when you say electron affinity, this is the likelihood of the nucleus to attract the electron. Okay? Ibig sabihin, ito yung likeness niya to get the electron. Okay? Ang tanong, sino yung mas likely mag-attract ng electron? Is it the small atom or the big atom? The answer is the small atom. This has more chances of having higher electron affinity than big atoms. Why? You have to consider the distance of electron to the nucleus. Kasi kapag small atom yan, ibig sabihin, the electron is much closer to the nucleus. Therefore, mas attracted sila sa isa't isa. Unlike kapag malayo, masyadong malayo siya sa nucleus, hindi na siya ganun ka-attracted, no? Okay? So it doesn't feel that much attraction to the nucleus because it's too far. Okay? So that's why the trend is the opposite of the atomic radius. No? The smaller the atom is, the higher the electron affinity. Why? Because smaller atoms, yung electrons nila, they are much closer to the nucleus than bigger atoms. No? Ang logic ko dyan is LDR. Ano sabi nila? Pag LDR, it doesn't work daw, di ba? Although there are LDRs na nag-work, pero sabi ng ibang kabataan, yung LDR di yan mag-work. Bakit? Kasi malayo sila sa isa't isa. Ganun din sa electrons, no? The farther the electron is, the lesser the attraction to the nucleus, no? So, ibig sabihin, lower yung kanyang affinity sa nucleus. Okay? Parang LDR lang, pag palayo ng palayo sobra, parang wala na. Hindi, joke lang. Kung LDR kayo na successful, that's good. No? Pero for some, ganun yung case, di ba? Okay? So, the more distant yung kanilang partner, ayun, the sadder they become, no? Okay? Because wala sila masyadong affinity to each other, no? Okay? Wala sila masyadong moments with each other. So, ganun din sa electrons, no? The farther the electron is from the nucleus, the lower the electron affinity is. Okay? That means the lower the attraction of electron towards the nucleus. Okay? Same thing with ionization energy. Ang ionization energy, ito yung energy that is needed to remove the electron from the atom. Okay? So it follows the same trend. The smaller the atom, the higher the ionization energy. Ano uli logic natin dyan? O ganun ulit, LDR na naman, no? Pag kayo magkasama talaga, no, hindi kayo mapaghiwalay, di ba? Kasi magkasama kayo no? So yun, ganun din pag small atom. Small atom, the electron and the nucleus are close to one another. So they are inseparable. Okay? So kung gusto mo maghiwalay sila, you have to provide big amounts of energy. Okay? Yun yung ionization energy. Kung gusto mo paghiwalayin yan, gumawa ka ng matinding eksena. Okay? So, para maghiwalay yung electrons and the nucleus. Okay? So, that's the idea for ionization energy. The closer the proton and the electron is, the harder it is to separate them. However, if they are distant, mas madali kunin yung electron. Okay? Kasi hindi na nga siya masyadong attracted sa nucleus. So, yan. So the farther the electron is, the easier for you to get that electrons. Okay? So, yan. And that is the reason why these elements here are non-metals, no? They are non-metals. Bakit sila non-metal? Kasi nga, ayaw nila mamigay ng electron. Ang property ng metal is namimigay sila ng electron. Okay? Okay, so yan. So, ayan. Yun yung reason bakit itong mga to non-metal. Okay? Because, hindi sila masyadong attracted sa electron. They have lower electron affinity. Okay? Or they have lower ionization energy. So, ibig sabihin na, they tend to give off the electrons. Okay? Ako wala silang pake. Sa inyo na electron ko. Ganun. I don't care. Yun yung sabi ng metals. But for metal, for non-metals, sila yung gustong-gusto ng electron. Okay? Gustong-gusto nila yung electron. Kaya sila yung non-metals. Okay? They attract the electrons. Not give it off. Okay. So yan. It's the ionization energy. The smaller the atom is, the harder for you to pull out the electron. Okay? Kasi masyado silang attracted to one another. And then last, electronegativity. This is very similar to electron affinity. This is the tendency of an atom to attract electrons. Similar with electron affinity. Okay? So yan. Again, the closer the electron to the nucleus is, the more attracted they are. The more attracted they become. Okay? So ganun. The farther the electron is from the lower their attraction. Means hindi sila ganun ka-electron. Okay? So yan. And that is the summary of all the periodic trends now. Again, atomic radius, as you go down to the left, the atomic radius increases, the atomic size increases. Dalawa yung explanation, bakit? Yung as you go down, the orbits increase. No? The orbits of the electron increase. So that means bigger size. Yung to the left naman, ano yan, yung logic natin dyan is that there are fewer protons to the left than on the right. No? So that means it will not pull the orbit closer. Okay? Kasi if you go to the right, the number of protons increases. So the orbit will be pulled closer to the nucleus. Therefore, the atoms here are smaller. Okay? Pero dito, onti lang yung protons, so that means the orbit will not be pulled that much towards the nucleus. So it becomes larger as you go to the left. Okay? And based on the analogy of atomic radius, we can describe the other three periodic properties: the electron affinity, ionization energy, electronegativity. Okay? As you can see, depending on the distance of electron, no, you can say whether mataas ang kanyang electron affinity, ionization energy, or electronegativity. The closer the electron is to the nucleus, right, meaning the smaller the atom is, the higher the electron affinity, the higher the ionization energy, and the higher the electronegativity. Okay? And vice versa. So, yan. So, that is all the periodic tables. Ito naman, ang ganito ay discuss sa lab. No? So, we will not discuss it here. Okay? So, yan. So, sa lab na yung mga electronic configuration. Okay? So, basically, that's it. No? Tapos na tayo. Try to answer the following items. So, ito yung mga yun. Just to check if you understood the topic well. Okay? Or if maalala mo masyado yung topic. Ayan. So, try to answer all of this. And ito yung mga sagot. Okay? This is self-assessment, kaya na bahala dyan. And just keep in mind yung logic na ginagamit ko. Yung LDR. So, yan. Although it will work for real relationships, no? But for electrons, yun, hindi siya nag-work. Okay. The farther it is to the nucleus, okay, ayan, hindi na siya ganun ka-attracted. Okay? So, yung mga ganung bagay, ito, patapos na ako. Yung mga ganung kwento sa chemistry, no? Yung mga parang nonsense, no? You can somehow relate it sa chem, no? And make a logical reason from it, no? For example, yung LDR, no? Hindi mo isipin na pwede siya i-relate sa chem, no? Pero pwede, no? Okay? Yun yung ginagamit ko talaga to fully remember the periodic trends, eh. Okay? So, isa lang kakabisaduhin ko yung atomic radius. Then, everything else, LDR logic na yung gagamitin ko. Okay? So, that is how you study smart. No? Ganun yung pag-study smart. No? Okay? It's not always memorization lang. Okay? Wag lang puro memorize. Dapat, you create logical ideas. No? Okay? Gawa kayo ng connections from the vagueness of the society. I-relate nyo yun sa chemistry. No? Okay? So, ganun lang. So, with that, naaalala ko siya kahit anong mangyari. Siguro, kahit tulog ako, maalala ko yan, mapapanaginipan ko yan. No? Kasi madali siya i-relate sa real life. No? Okay? So, ganun lang. I hope na you find the good, no? Para magamit nyo rin, okay? So again, try to answer this self-assessment. Kayo na bahala dyan. The answers are provided naman. So yan. And this is the summary of everything. Okay? Atomic radius, ayan, ionization energy, electron affinity, metallic character. Metallic character, obviously, pag nasa baba, metals. Pag nasa taas, non-metal. Okay? So yan. So anyway, that's all. That's chapter 2. Okay? Do you have any question? Or okay naman tayo? Na-recall naman tayo? Okay? I hope na-recall tayo na. Okay? So yan, if you have any further questions, just do not hesitate to ask me questions. No? Kasi online naman ako parate. No? So, pag nabasa ko yung question nyo, yan, sagutin ko agad. Okay? So, I will see you again next week, no? Again, stay safe and Merry Christmas po. Okay. Huwag kayong magpapabudol sa Shopee sa 99. Okay. Kasi wala pa kayong pera. Okay. Saka na kayo magpabudol. Okay? Merry Christmas na and stay safe na and see you again next week. Bye-bye. Ingat parate.
Thank you po, sir.
Bye-bye.